Hey, my name's Luke David Robinson, and I'm trading my way up to my dream car. A while ago, I bought a beta of a car for just £180, and I fixed it and flipped it for profit and repeated the process again and again. Will I ever find my way to that dream car of mine? Who knows, but it's sure gonna be fun trying. This is Talksteer, running down a dream.
I just spilled my drink all over everything. My microphone wasn't working. I didn't have it turned on, so you didn't hear the audio, but I've got tea all over the bonnet of the car and the engine bay. And that's what you get for enthusiastically starting a YouTube video and not realising you've got a cup of tea there and you just knock out your hands. And now my coat is covered in tea. It's also really cold today. Snow's coming down outside, so that's why I've got quite a few layers on. Anyway, in today's video, stay away from that cup of tea there, I'm going to be getting the 2.5 GTI started. She finally started, and it was a really simple fix at the end, but it took a little while to get there to find what the problem was. So I'm going to run you through everything I've did to get this car started. And also, disclaimer, me being an idiot, I've deleted pretty much all the clips of me trying to get this car started. I think what I've done, I've left them on the camera, then I formatted the camera thinking they were imported on my computer, and they weren't. But thankfully, I do have the clips from yesterday where the car finally got started and what I did to fix the car at that point. So proof was there that I've done it, so it's just everything leading up to it that went missing. Okay, let's get into this. The problem with the car was that it would crank, but it wouldn't start. There was no attempt whatsoever for the car to fire into life. But this confused me a bit because last year when I got the car, I was able to get the car started and moved it over to the other side of the garden. So I knew the problem couldn't be too serious and the car should eventually start. Now, to me there was 5 major things I need to look at to make sure this car was started. That was the timing, also making sure that the compression was good, fueling, ignition and air. So I was pretty sure that the timing and compression was fine because the car had started, and I couldn't see the car really skipping at all. The timing skipping on the belt, like it could go in a couple of teeth out because it hadn't moved. So why had it gone out at that point? I was quite skeptical of that. So it left me with the more obvious ones to look at, which was the air, the ignition and the fuel. Well, the air one was very simple to look at because you just have to look down here, make sure there was nothing clogging the air filter or anything getting into the car and it could breathe fine. And guess what? The car could breathe fine. There was no problems with the airbox or anything whatsoever. So left me with 2 avenues to start pursuing, fuel and ignition. So I started off with the fuel because to me that was the easy one for me to kind of make sure that it was working okay. And it was a really simple thing of all I needed to do. I just needed to make sure the fuel was getting up here to the fuel veil of the car. So here's the process of how the fuel gets to the engine on this car. You got the fuel pump, which is underneath of the back seaters, and that's going to push the fuel all the way along here, and it's going to come up underneath the bottom of the engine bay here. So we've got this little line which you can't see, and it's going to come into this metal thing here, and that's the fuel filter. It'll pass through that and then come out the other side, come down this line, and eventually here onto the fuel veil, and it's going to inject that fuel into the engine of the car. So the first thing I wanted to make sure that was working was just that there was fuel getting to here. This was the easiest thing to kind of look at. But of course, I need to make sure there was fuel in the car, so I just put a gallon of fuel. I think I just took a can. So I stuck about that much fuel into the car, make sure there was nothing there. I was pretty certain I'd stuck some in a year ago anyway, but for all I know, the fuel could have gone bad. I think so. There's some better fuel in there. And then it was simply a case of getting a spanner, backing this nut off a bit, not completely, just so it was loose, putting some cloths underneath and all that to make sure the engine stays dry, and just cranking the car over for a second. And what will happen is fuel will squirt out of here, and then you're going to know that there's fuel pressure again to this part of the car released. So yeah, that's exactly what happened. I fired it up and fuel was getting to the veil. So at this point I was fairly certain that it wasn't a fueling problem. Like, yeah, there could be a problem of the fuel getting into the engine or anything, but at this point I was like, yeah, you know, the pump's working fine, it's getting all through to here. I'm not really convinced it's a fueling problem. So that's where I started looking at the ignition system on the car. So this being a petrol car, the ignition system has, well, we've got 4 cylinders here, cylinder 1, 2, 3 and 4. And each one of these has a spark plug in it and has a lead going to it. And these leads go to this yellow cap here, which is the distributor. The distributor is connected here to the ignition coil. and it's just kind of like one chain reaction going down. So the first thing I wanted to do is make sure that the ignition system was working fine. The first thing I wanted to check out was the spark plugs. So these are the old spark plugs that are in the car, and as you can see, if my camera focuses correctly, they are in really bad condition. It's probably the best one on them all, but there's a lot of carbon deposits on them, carbon fouling. This was off cylinder 3. I'm just going to show you all 4 cylinders, what they were like. So cylinder 3, cylinder 1, and whilst the car did run with these originally, for the sake of £10 for a set of them, it was definitely worth swapping them over. I mean, you can see how much rust is on these as well, so they've been sat there a long time. So yeah, a nice new set of NGKs for £10 from Euro Car Parts. Definitely helped the car out anyway. Now, the Haynes manual says that the gap in between the electrode has got to be between, I think, 0.7 to 0.8 millimeters. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any feeler gauges, which is a shame, but it turns out the metal part of this ruler, when I put my vernier calipers on, is 0.75 millimeters, so that was perfect. And what I found is when I stick it over the end of the spark plugs is that they don't go over, so the gap was too close on the old spark plugs. They were perfect on the new one, so at least I know that they're set right as well. And with that done, the next thing I wanted to actually check out was making sure that we had a spark again towards the car. So this is where this tool comes into play. Now this sits in between the ignition lead and the spark plug. The way this normally works is, I'm just going to show you on these examples here. So you've got your ignition lead and you've got your spark plug. So that sits over there like that, and then that sits in the engine block of the car. All you have to do, it's really simple, is take the plug, the lead off the plug, stick this in between them, in line, and don't drop it. Don't drop the spark plug wherever it's gone. So if there's a spark against the car, this is going to start pulsing to tell you that there's a spark getting there, and there wasn't. So the next thing I needed to look at was the leads running to the spark plugs. And I looked at them, and to be honest, they looked alright. I did order a set off eBay and they were £7. Turns out I didn't need them because the leads were fine. But I was able to actually use one of the rubber ends to repair one of the leads that were already on, and it was worth it for that. So I wasn't too bothered about spending £7 on them. So currently we're on about £17, not too bad. Next thing though was, after making sure all the leads were good and everything, the car still wouldn't start. Which then brings me on to what's on this side of the engine. So we've got here, this orange thing here is the distributor, and this other orange thing at the back is the ignition coil. And I was kind of thinking it was one of these two being the problem, because everything up here had been checked or been renewed and that was all good. But what I did discover is, after I'd played around putting the lead on the ignition coil and checking them out, the car started for about 2 seconds but wouldn't go any further, and then I couldn't replicate the problem. And I was like, there seems to be something a little bit fishy about this ignition coil over here. I ordered a new ignition coil off eBay and it cost around £15, and it was really easy to install actually. Just undo a couple of bolts on the side, move the terminals off the top, and just do the reversal to reinstall it back into the car. I'm going to show you some clips now as we go along and talk about it, because this is where I started filming and I still have the clips. So all I did was order a brand new ignition coil off eBay for £15, which wasn't too expensive. The distributor was a lot more expensive to buy, so I was hoping with fingers crossed that that wasn't going to be the problem. So when I arrived, I took the old ignition coil off and stuck the new one on, and went to start the car, exact same problem. And at this point I was like, oh, it's got to be the distributor at this point, because I'll be like, I've tried everything else. Although, to be fair, I do not like the way these connections are on. Now, let's just zoom in so you can see what I'm on about. I've got the old clips on here going on. These aren't very tight now. These might not be making proper contact, and they weren't great on the old ignition coil either. So I think what's fair to do at the moment is just cut the ends off them, put some new connections on the ends, because look how easy that come off. At least we can kind of just eliminate that being a problem then. Right, So there is new connections on here. They are nice and secure, so I think that just eliminates that being a problem. Let's get into the car, start it, and see if that makes any difference. I've got to say, that was an improvement, wasn't it? Woo! Oh, okay, that works a few seconds, but that was a definite improvement. So I think we've actually really got down to something here. So let's try that one more time. But that's the best it's started in a long time. Woo! Give it another go. Okay, I'm not quite sure why it's cutting out after a few seconds, but that sounded relatively healthy. I was quite happy with how the engine sounded. There's nothing bad underneath there, so I'm going to take that as the car's mostly started. I think we've literally got the major problem out of the way. Honestly, it is getting better after every single try. At that time it lasted about 25-30 seconds. I just don't know whether it just needs running more and more. Clear out crap is in the system out of there. I don't know whether there's maybe it's like blockage through the fuel or something. See, running better at the moment. See, it's not cutting out as quickly. It will cut out, so I'm just going to keep trying this for a while. It's getting better and better. My hunch is that the problem is, again, fuel and supply. And I think it might just be the fuel filter. This looks quite old, this filter. I think this could have been in here for years and years. I don't think it's been renewed. So I'm going to go ahead and start off by sticking a new fuel filter on it, see if that solves the problem. If not, then we need to look a bit further into the system to see if there's something else. But let's start off with the most obvious thing, because regardless of what happens, I think this filter needs to be replaced, because obviously this car is going to be sold on. I want to make sure it's running fine for the next person. So let's start off with that. But that's everything on this video anyway, because I'm going to count this as the car did start. We've got the major problem out of the way, so now it's just refining it and making sure that it's running properly. So I'm going to leave this video at this point. Right, okay, I'm going to leave that video there for today. So anything else I'm going to show you in the future videos, but I'm going to class that as the car actually getting started. I don't think the issues we've got now are going to be too serious to sort out, so it's just small issues to fix. Anyway, that means I can actually start getting onto stuff like getting all the brakes done and everything, and getting the glass in the back, and maybe getting the bodywork back together. Hopefully I can get this car back on its wheels so I can take it outside then. If the glass is on the back and this car starts, I can pull it out of the garage and pull it back in when I need it, because this thing is just taking up the entire garage and I can't do anything with it. So yeah, I'm quite happy with this at the moment. So you know what to do for the next episode on Running Down a Dream. If you like this episode, click like button, subs if you loved it, dislikes if you don't. But anyway, leave a comment in the section below if you want to know anything. I'll try and read all the comments if I can. But until then, thank you all for watching. See you soon, and I hope you're as excited as I am that this car's actually now running. Yes. Okay. Alright, see you soon. Take care. See you in the next one.